Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to this DevOps.com workshop, brought to you by Techstrong, AWS, and Snyk. My name is Cody J. Brown. I'm the host of Techstrong Learning, and we have an exciting workshop ahead. First, I do need to cover just a couple of housekeeping notes. Today's session is being recorded, so if you miss any of our discussion, maybe you'd like to rewatch, refollow along, or share with a friend, the on-demand recording will be made available shortly after we conclude our live session today. If you have any questions, and this is an interactive workshop, so we assume that you will have plenty, please do send those in to us using either the chat if it has to do with something that's going on right now, or if it's a more general question, do direct those to the Q&A tab. Either way, we'll do our best to get around to addressing them. Now, in the handouts, there are a couple of helpful links to help you navigate through today's workshop, but those links will also be pasted throughout the chat. So please do, if you have any questions, let us know and we can help you with getting back on track with the workshop today. And of course, before we close out, we are giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards, so be sure to stick around. So the title of our workshop today is Securing Your App Modernization Initiatives with Snyk and HashiCorp. And I'm joined by Raj Jeripotula, Senior Partner Solutions Architect at AWS, Marco Morales, Partner Solutions Architect at Snyk, and Gautam Baghel, Partner Solutions Engineer at HashiCorp. So Raj, Marco, and Gautam, thank you all so much for being here with us today. Raj, do you want to get this workshop going?
Thank you very much, Cody. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay, let me know once you see my screen and we can get started. Can you see the presentation slide?
We see it, Raj. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Shashiraj Jeripotula. I'm a Senior Partner Solutions Architect at AWS, and I work with various ISVs. ISVs are like independent software vendors, and AWS partners like HashiCorp and Snyk. I support two segments at AWS called as Cloud Management Tools and DevOps, and both Snyk and HashiCorp are part of the DevOps segment. So my job is to help joint solutions between AWS and partners like Snyk and HashiCorp, and also help them with cloud adoption on AWS. So with me today, we have two speakers. So Marco from Snyk, can you give a 1-minute introduction about yourself?
Hi, my name is Marco Morales. I'm Partner Solutions Architect, and my role within Snyk is to work with great partners like HashiCorp and AWS to bring great solutions to the community. And we'll be doing a workshop today about that. Thank you.
Gautam, thank you, Murat.
Everyone, I'm Gautam from HashiCorp. I'm a partner solutions engineer for the Alliances team, and I work with both AWS and Snyk to kind of integrate and give you best in the industry solutions. Great to be here.
Thanks a lot, Marco and Gautam. So let's get started. So why are we meeting today? What are the goals? So some of the goals that we, AWS, Snyk, and HashiCorp are trying to do is to bring our customers, our partners, and AWS solutions architects together, provide customizable experiences to discover, expedite new opportunities, advance new POCs, and existing blockers in your cloud adoption journey. So today you'll have a chance to play with both free accounts from AWS, Snyk, and HashiCorp. And one of the goal is also to help customers leverage AWS services with partner solutions from Snyk and HashiCorp. And we today you will also have a chance to do hands-on workshop. We will also get guidance from both AWS, Snyk, and HashiCorp. So we are there to help you throughout. So we have next 1.5 to 2 hours. And one of the things about all these accounts are these are production accounts, and these are available for free as you're attending this workshop. So you'll have like 24 hours to play with the workshops. You can go and learn some of the new AWS services. It's your chance to use this workshop's credits for free to go and learn something new today. So if you are used AWS, HashiCorp, or Snyk in the past, you can go and learn new services that you did not use before. Or if this is your first time, feel free to explore other services, create some small clusters, because these are production accounts. We will encourage you to not go and spin up big clusters, because this is going to be like a big cost for AWS. So please be mindful about the usage. But as I said, you have 24 hours to use all these solutions for free. So today's agenda, we'll start with introduction that we already started. Myself, so Raj, I will be doing this. And we'll also talk about some of the AWS services that are available for you today and some best practices. And then I will give it to HashiCorp. Gautam will talk about some of the challenges HashiCorp has that it can solve for you. And same with Snyk. Marco will talk about some of the challenges Snyk solutions can provide for you. So they will talk about those. Finally, we'll have a workshop walkthrough between Snyk and HashiCorp on how you can jointly use AWS, Snyk, and HashiCorp to take care of some of the challenges that you have at your workplace today. Finally, very important, at the end, there is an event survey. So I would encourage you to please give us some feedback on what worked and what did not work in the survey, so that we can go and work on it for our next event. And some housekeeping, as I already talked to you, these are all production accounts. So please be mindful about the usage, but do go and check out anything that you want to learn on these services. Um, Today, I will give you one URL, and then I can tell you the next steps on how to get into AWS account. Similarly, Marco and Gautam will talk about how you can get into HashiCorp and Snyk. Finally, we talked about the survey link, which I will give at the end of the presentation. So let's start with the AWS first. So what you need to do is to access the event, right? You will be given an URL, which is like dashboard.eventengine.run. Can somebody please put this link into the chat so that people can start using it? And once you get this URL, you need to enter a hash code. If somebody can also give the hash code, this will give you option to get into AWS account. There are three ways. Either you can use your Amazon.com account, like if you already have an Amazon login, you can use that. Or you can use your personal email with an OTP. You'll get a one-time password. So once you enter that password, you will be able to get into AWS and start using the AWS. And finally, you will have a link. Please give the survey link. So this link will give us some feedback on how we did and what we need to work on next, and what we could do better. So I will quickly go through the link right now. So let me share my screen. So you could see that once you click on the URL that is put into the chat, you will come into the screen. Now you need to go and enter the hash code. So enter the hash code here. I accept terms and login. And these are the three options. As I said, email one-time password. If you don't have Amazon.com login, you can use your one personal email, and a one-time password will be sent to you. Then you'll have a chance to log in with Amazon.com. I also already told you, if you have a retail account, you can use it. So I am an employee, so I will just click in here. So once I click in here, so I get to this screen. So I have two screens, so I'm looking at the other screen. So here, you come in here, you have two options. You have SSH key. We'll be using the SSH key tab later. You have AWS console. Open this into a new tab, or you can click on it. It will give you a login. Once you come on the screen, does anyone have any questions how we got in here? I can stop and go back, or else I can continue from here. Can someone tell me from the chat if anybody has any issues here so far?
No questions yet, Raj, but we'll
Okay,
wait a few seconds.
thank you. So here you have open console. So let's click this link. Now, since I already have given OTP or email address or like an Amazon employee, I have directly access to the AWS Management Console. So I am in this region. So Ohio, please try to stay in this region because the lab works fine when you are sticking up to this region. If you change the regions, it might not work. So you need to be in US East 2. And also make sure that after the labs, if you want to do something else, feel free to change the regions. But the best the lab works and the workshop works is in US East 2 Ohio region. So from here, I will hand it over to Marco, who will just go through the Snyk stuff, and then he will talk about how you can use the workshop both with HashiCorp and Snyk. So with this, I will give it to Marco, but please do enter the survey at the end or while you are having some time during the lab so that we know how things are working for us. Okay, thank you very much. And with this, I will hand it over to Marco.
Thank you, Raj. I'll start transitioning and sharing my screen. While we bring up my screen, I'd like to get confirmation for at least one person that's a visitor. If you enable to sign on to the event engine and start getting your AWS console. I just need one person to say, thumbs up or you're able to do it as we get moving. And I will be asking a couple of questions just for some confirmation. Anyone in the chat, please go ahead and do that. I wanted to start here and give you a little bit of context for the workshop in terms of who we are and what we're trying to accomplish. So thank you. I got 2 people, so that's good enough. Participant 394 and 105 that you were able to do this. And Gotham, my request is if we have people raise their hands, let's maybe figure out what the questions are. So just real quick, couple of slides. I have a number of backups in case you ask questions. Just wanted to let you know why we're here and what we're doing. So first is a little bit about Snyk. This is the one slide. Snyk has a number of products that we provide for application security, and we help development teams and DevOps teams with the code they write, the open source libraries they use, the containers they build, the infrastructure as code they author, and the assets they provision in cloud environments such as AWS. Today, we're going to focus primarily on Snyk ISC or infrastructure as code. We've got great conversations about the rest, but we're going to focus today on this thing. Just a couple more slides. One of the things we want to do is identify with the audience and let you know that together we're on this journey. It's not a one-day transition, but we know that teams are getting more complicated because they have more people, they're more independent, they're using more tools, the workflows are getting more complicated, and you're deploying the cloud. So all this is context and structure just to say that we hear you, we know this, and the shared journey we have is, once again, we know that security is this friction point between development teams and the security folks, and that when we see these great infinity loops, we like to say how it's sometimes broken because one side is not able to communicate with the other. So the workshop, and I'll transition away now from the slides over to the workshop. The workshop is about how we're trying to empower development teams to use tooling such as Snyk and HashiCorp to address security issues as people are creating and managing their infrastructure at the time of authorship. So rather than wait until the end and see what happens, oh my goodness, something went bad, you do it before you do a commit, before you do a push, or before you deploy infrastructure. I'll now navigate into my different screens. I have a bunch of tabs open. I'll try to minimize transitions. For now, I'm going to start with this workshop, and I'll cut and paste this URL, which is public, and it's going to be, let me know, I'm sorry, I think everyone should be able to see it. This is a workshop, it's a public asset. You're free to follow along, but for the purpose of the next, say, 75, 90 minutes, we're going to prescriptively tell you what to do within an Amazon Cloud9 environment. And the reason we do this, we want you to have the same experience. Gotham and I are both going to run as you would. So we're not running from our own laptops. We're just doing work as you would. So you can see the check marks, the navigation. Please feel to check it out, read it at your own leisure. But the structure of these modernization workshops are great. We walk you through some real world use cases so that you can do things. And then I'll just navigate through. So we give an introduction, and Gotham is going to give you his own description of what HashiCorp is. I told you about Snyk. We're going to tell you, what we're doing. We already mentioned that we want to show you how developers can address infrastructure as code and security issues at a time of authorship. And then we just start describing other things. Again, read them as you want. You can see I'm clicking through the different pages just to let you know that this background information is here for you and your teammates in case you want to share this. You are free to run this workshop. on your own infrastructure, but we're using the AWS environment. We're going to do some setups here. And one of the things is that we do want you to set up a Snyk account. It's an easy operation. If you navigate, I'm going to open up a tab and do snyk.io. If you navigate to that page and click on the sign up button in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to be asked to enter your username, which is your email address, and a password. It's free to use. You can use it forever for free. You're only limited by the number of times you get to use it in a month. And that's totally all you need to do for the purpose. I'm already logged in. I have an account, so I don't go through the sequence here, but it takes about 1 or 2 minutes as you do this. And you can always delete your entire account at the conclusion if you don't want us to know who you are after this fact. So I'll go back to the workshop and know that it is a prerequisite. Some of the other things we're going to set up are some CLI options. We'll walk you through those steps. And also there's going to be a Terraform cloud setup, which Gotham will do after the first module of this workshop. So I'm going to focus on this Snyk stuff. It's a lot of cut and paste, but I'll have some explanations along the way. So again, we covered this first part, which if you were to read, will probably take 10, 15 minutes, or your teammates. We just, we saved about as much time just walking through this. So now let's get into the self-guided workshop. So what we do is these workshops have the nice structure of telling you what you need to do. You're given an AWS account, which is huge upside. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to configure a couple of things so that you can be productive with running Terraform and Snyk CLI commands in your environment. I've already done some of this, and there'll be a pause point for you to do it on your own. So the first one is we ask people to set up your AWS account. You already have one. If you navigated to to the event engine, you probably have seen this kind of screen. If you've gone through the enter your username and get your password, you get an email code sent to you and you log in. When you click on the AWS console, you're going to be brought into an AWS environment. And what I did for you to set up your Cloud9 environment is you just type in Cloud9 and click on this item here to find the right the right service. I'm going to navigate back to the workshop. This part here about setting your account, this is something you already have. If you will see in your setup AWS keys. Make a note of those things because you'll need those later on for Gotham's exercise when he does Terraform Cloud. But this is all about set up your account, attach policies. Let me make sure that my user does have administrative, has the administrator access IAM role. And what I'm going to do here is type in the word IAM, find the service, click on the one user that I have. I'll make this font bigger, which is EE Overload. That's, I guess, me, huh? I did not realize that was my name. And I already have the administrator access. Raj, quick audible here. I didn't set this up. I know in previous times we have. Is this automatically configured for every user?
That is correct. So these are production accounts and everybody's given admin access.
Great news. So that means you can skip this part. It's already attached. You're in great shape. And the rest of the narrative is up to you. So you can see the instruction to be, I did it as myself. You have your security credentials, which are shown in your AWS console for the event engine. If you type this in, I'm not going to do it because what happens is the keys get shown and I don't want people stealing my keys. But clicking on this button here will give you your AWS keys as you would need them. So you've got those. You can copy them, just put them away in your favorite text editor so you can use them later on for the rest of the workshop. Now it's the workspace. This section here tells you we're going to create a Cloud9 environment. This is what I was starting with a little bit out of order. I typed in, let's see, the word Cloud9. Cloud9 is a neat, it's a neat service that AWS provides. It's something that we're seeing more, is that you're given the opportunity to create an IDE environment running on hardware in the cloud, and you can get your development order. There's a great narrative here. I've already done this. If you were to click on the appropriate buttons to create an environment, what we give you is guidance to give your environment a name. Call it whatever you want. The name doesn't matter because we're only working in isolation. And the only thing you have to override in your setup is, instead of using the default T2 micro, ensure that you use T3 small. We need just a little bit more juice to make the workshop run nice. Once you use all the defaults except for T3 small, go ahead and click on the next step button and create your environment. Within a couple of minutes, you will get your AWS Cloud9 environment. And we can now wait for people to do this. You'll see a banner at the upper right-hand corner that tells you you're in this environment. You'll see a banner in this window saying that your environment is ready. I'd like to maybe take this point here to either answer questions, or as we wait for one person to confirm that they were able to create their Cloud9 environment. Any questions at this point, Gotham? I've not been paying attention.
Not yet, Marco.
Okay. And I'll give myself just some kind of, I can't do a song and dance here too long. How's this? Maybe if someone can type in the chat that you're going through the process of setting up your Cloud9 environment, let us know that. And that may be enough for me to continue moving along. See, Raj is saying that, and if you don't want to, do that, tell us where you're from. Or while we were getting warmed up, we were talking about how many monitors we have in our local environment. Some of us has 3, some of us has 1. Type in either where you're from or how many monitors you have in your working environment if you're not setting up your Cloud9 environment.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I'd like to kind of come back to is the reason we're doing development through Cloud9 environment is really so that we're all in the same shared sort of workspace, right? Like there's no additional dependency or CLI tools that you have to install. Like we are sort of all starting from a blank slate, so that if you guys run into any issues or any trouble, we kind of see it on our end too. So
okay,
let's use Cloud9.
2 monitors. Thank you, participant 300. 2 monitors. Just one confirmation from somebody out there that you are trying to set up Cloud9 in your environment. Just because I now want to move on to the discussion. One person going once, going twice. I'm going to just assume at this point that we do have people playing along, and we'll move back. So when you go through the process, and it really only takes a couple of minutes, you'll get an ID environment, and in the instructions here, are telling you if you want to customize or change things, you can. It is not required. Other workshops may have you change permissions and things, but we've already taken care of a lot of those things. The next thing we want to do is we're going to create an IAM role. This IAM role is going to grant your Cloud9 environment permissions to create and manage Amazon environments, specifically around an EC2 instance. So we're going to go and navigate into the Amazon service. This will be your console, and look for IAM. And I'll have to go back and forth with the tabs because I realize I know what I'm going to do, but I have to be reminded what I'm doing here. So you can click on the link, but we're going to click on the AWS service IAM, and we're going to create a new role. So over on the left side, there's the word roles, and we're going to create a new role. There's a lot of guidance here, and what we're going to use is the AWS service, if I have highlighted here, which is default, and I'm going to pick EC2 as the example. Next, we'll select the actual one, and if I'm right, the administrator, the guidance is to type in the word administrator to do a search. And let me make sure I'm doing the right one here. Blah, blah, blah. Administrator access. Let me do the right thing and copy this to the clipboard. That way it's Raj, is this thing already added on there? Is that what happened? No. Here it is. So what I did is I'm creating a new role. I have this one called administrator access. I'm enabling the box, and I'm clicking on the word next. This just creates, I can click on a whole bunch of these roles if you're not used to this, but what we're really doing is we're creating a set of policies. And I'm going to call this a Cloud9 IAM role. It's going to be the only one that we create, so it's not like we are going to have a large list. If your company has your own policies for how you name, you would do it in the right way for your environment. I'll click on enable or add permissions. So we're doing next. Did I do the wrong thing? No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I know what I did. And I'll create the role. Okay, good. So I have the role. And what we'll do is I've already searched for the names. I created the role, and I can attach it. So now that I have the role defined, I'm going to navigate over to my AWS It's over here. Sorry, I'm tabbing a lot. I was trying to avoid this thing. Normally I have 2 screens, but for this one, I decided to do 1 screen, EC2. The next thing you do is you navigate into your EC2 services. Find what I believe will be the one instance that is running for your environment. Click on the name, and I'll make the font smaller so you can see just a little bit more detail. Click on the name. We're going to take the action of security and modify the IAM role. And what I'm going to look for here is the Cloud9 IAM role. I'm going to attach it to this instance. And this now gives me the ability to do administrator access activities from your Cloud9 environment to do the right thing for the workshop. So at this point, I think we're set. Any questions along the way? Looks like, can I just get one person? You know, I'm dying here just to see one person if they are trying to move along, because now we're going to start doing command line activities. So the next couple of things are going to be now to install some tools. These are going to be highly prescriptive, just type this in kind of commands. And what I can do is cut and paste these operations into your Cloud9 environment. When Cloud9 starts up, you'll have a default welcome screen. You can close that off. And I'll make this font bigger just for everybody so they can read it. I'll just start cutting and pasting the commands in here as we update the CLI and do things. A lot of times these things are just already taken care of, so we're in good shape. I'll now navigate. I'll move this over so I can be here next to the window. We don't, we got them, verification. At this point, do I need a key pair? I have typically not done this because of other things.
Yeah, I don't think we need a key pair, Marco. If you can increase the size of the Cloud9 panel so that you can see the CLI commands and
Sure.
kind of if folks are indeed sort of following along, they can kind
Sure.
of see. I also heard there's a slight delay in like what we are sort of going through versus what the panelists might be seeing. So that might be the reason that we're kind of getting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll try to minimize the impact. And what I may do, folks, is I'll keep the font size really big here because we can, and I'll try to just make sure that we follow along the right way. So I'll navigate back to the tab. So we don't create a key pair. This would be for people if you're running in isolation or on your own and you want to do things, but we can skip it. Next one is going to be a couple of partner setups, and these are going to be 2 command line operations. And so we talk about the way it works, but really what we're going to do is we're going to cut and paste a couple of commands to install Terraform, the command line tool, into your environment. The first one is to just make sure you have the right tools installed from the Amazon Linux instance. Let's see if I can do this. So this is going to run. Comes in pretty quickly. I'll navigate back. I'll make sure we add the right entry into our environment. Writing a repo. I'll install Terraform with a yum command where it's a new Ubuntu variant. And then I'll go ahead and just verify that Terraform is actually running. This one says Terraform help, which is going to give us a bunch of items. You may choose to do like a Terraform version if you want to see the results. So there, looks like Terraform is up and running. Pretty easy. It's what we like to see. I'll navigate next into the Snyk environment. Or I'm sorry, this part here for Terraform Cloud. Gotham will show you this in the second half of the workshop. So we'll skip this over here. So here's a part where I get to tell you, log in, get your Snyk account, because you're going to need to authorize and get a token to make this work. But let's now set up the CLI. So we also have a public repository. And what we'll do is we'll paste these commands to download the binary and install it locally. And it's an easy, you can see it's not a very big CLI. And then we'll just do this part here. So the work I'll do here, and I can show you some of this the right way. I, as a Snyk employee, have a lot of things going on. I'm going to use an organization. There's a way of us organizing our groups and organizations and projects. I am now in an environment, think of it as a nested set of folders, that lets me send all of my results to this location. And if you saw real quickly, I have a bunch of different names. It just means I have my work separated. From here, one of the things I'll need to do is, as a Snyk person or a person that's using Snyk, you want to click into your settings page over on the left and get your organization ID. This is the ID. So every folder, if you want, has a UUID. And what I'm doing here is I'll do the Snyk auth API token. Sorry, I spoke too quickly. The API token is GDD. Be quiet. That's my my machine talking. Let's just look at the instructions. So the authorization token is something you'll need. It's a secret. I'm not going to actually show you the page when I get my thing, so that way you don't say copy my results. But as a user, you click on your name and you go to your account settings, and I'm going to go ahead and create I'll move this tab out of the way, because when I click and show it, it's going to show you my my API token. But I'll move it out of here to do the nice security thing. I'll move it back. In my Cloud9 environment, I'll do the Snyk auth and then the API token, Snyk auth, and then I'll paste my token, but I'll move this out of the way so you don't see my token. And I'll press return. And if I'm right, and I move my windows around, we'll see evidence that this actually works. So again, the idea here is I didn't want to show you what my token is, but the result is that when you go ahead and click onto your account settings and click this API token to get your token and type in the word Snyk space auth space and then this token, you're going to get a result where your account has been authenticated and now you're ready to use Snyk. And this is an example of the text. Other things, if you're working at your local desktop or laptop, you can type in the word Snyk auth. You'll be prompted. You'll actually get navigated over to a URL, or sorry, a browser. But because we're working in Cloud9, I wasn't going to do the browser because it doesn't know what my browser is. Okay. So this is a run test. So this is something that Gautam will talk about when he enables Terraform Cloud. And now we're almost ready to cook with gas, because now we're going to be doing things with GitHub repositories and so on. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use a publicly accessible GitHub repository. This is something that Gautam and I'll do GitHub here, GitHub. Gautam and I, and when we work across, we know it's important to provide reference repositories for examples for people to use. It's just a good practice. So Snyk, HashiCorp, AWS have a bunch of repos. This item here, which I'll cut and paste and put into the webinar room, you're encouraged to try it out. As with any deliberately vulnerable repository, we're going to tell you probably don't want to run in your production environment because they are deliberately vulnerable. Check it out. There's a couple different branches on there. You'll see evidence of me working with Gautam over time. But the examples that we're going to use here is we're going to cut and paste this text here to clone that repository locally into my Cloud9 environment. And what you may have seen is that on the left side, the Cloud9 IDE environment has this directory structure that just kind of populates because it knows, oh, I've got some new code. So we've got the code locally. Next thing, what we're going to do is I'm going to do this because I have a specific organization that I use, and I have to do, oops, I went the wrong way. You don't have to do this. I have to do this because I have so many organizations for my different forms of testing, is I need to be specific as to which one I'm going to use. So this is a part for if you happen to be a person that's working in your existing Snyk environment, you created a test org, you're going to want to copy and send results to that location. Again, if you're just doing it the first time, you don't have to worry about this. But me, I do have to, because I want to make sure I send things that are right. And this is a non-default location. I have a default project I work. So I'm all set. My environment is now configured to send results to the one web page that I have set up. So we've got this. I can move on and start doing other things. So we're now in this environment, and think of it as you are a person that has started writing code, you checked it out, you're making changes, and you want to know what is the status of like your security for this infrastructure as code. So one of the things we'll do is we'll tell you, just type in the word Snyk ISC test. Snyk, HashiCorp, AWS have great command line interfaces with commands and subcommands. Snyk IAC is our command subcommand, and test is going to be the verb where we tell Snyk to check out what we have and look at the results. It comes back pretty quickly. This is a nice example. The summary, as you may be able to see here, has a listing of how many critical highs, mediums, and lows. We have 8 issues. 3 are medium and 5 are low. If I were to look at this from my IDE or my command line or later on in the web page, you'll see all the results have a similar structure where we try to present things in a nice format where we tell you, here's the severity, here's a description like a title, here's some information, links to externally publicly available databases and pages that describe those vulnerabilities, and maybe even some resolution. So we know it's one thing to tell people you have an issue here, but it's another one to tell people, here's what we think you need to do to fix that problem. And that's going to be the basis. So now I want you to think about is, as a developer, if I'm doing this, I would prefer to know this information before I check in code. And that's what's going to happen. So we've got this information. We've got a readout of what's going on. And this is really convenient for you and your team. Same layout. We did a cut and paste for this well-known branch. And we're telling you how to review. The repository has a number of commented codes that have the word like workshop in there. I would encourage you to, when you look at this this code at your own time, is read a couple of these workshop comments, because they're instructions of here's what we tell you and here's how you may want to fix it. It's kind of an educational resource. It's really useful for you and your team. And we're going to work through a couple of the examples as we knock down some of the problems. So here what we're describing is when we look at the information, one of the vulnerabilities is that we have open ingress. Ingress means that you have access from anywhere. What we have here is for port 22 or SSH, anyone can SSH to your environment. We're going to show you the consequence of that by doing some access. But first, I'm going to create a file, and there's more than one way of doing what I'm about to accomplish here. I'm going to create a file called, let me see, I forgot the name of it already, secrets auto TFRs. This is a file that would normally, let me just see if I can type in and do this at the same time. So normally this does not get checked into your GitHub repo because you have exclusions. But for the purpose of this, I'm not doing any commits. And I'm going to go ahead and enter my secret into this file so that when I run my Terraform commands, I already know where I'm working through. At this point, I'm going to navigate to a different window because, again, I don't want you seeing what my secrets are. And I'll just move this window here as I make my changes. And I would encourage you to do the same thing. Gotham, I think, would say that, other ways you can do this is you can use environment variables. Totally okay. Or other structures. Gotham, as I type, because I'm terrible at typing and talking, can you just ad lib for me while I do the right thing here?
Yeah, for sure. And while Marcus sort of doing that, that's the CLI way of operating with Terraform. When I kind of get into Terraform Cloud, I'll show you how you can sort of do the same thing in Terraform Cloud using points and clicks. So you don't have to kind of go through the CLI interface if you don't want to. If you love it, feel free to go ahead with it.
Yeah, I'm going to make the font just a little bit smaller so that I can kind of see it's really, really big for me. And so Gotham brings up a good point. Like, we do CLI operation because we know it's like keeping it real. People like seeing the CLI and it tracks really well. But as we get more advanced with either CI/CD pipelines using Terraform Cloud, we start deferring to the environment to have those information. So if I'm right, I entered my access key and my secret key, and I can now start doing the right thing with Terraform. This is not a primer or this is not a Terraform tutorial, but I know that one of the first things I'll do is I'll run a Terraform init command to initialize my environment to get it ready. So there's a whole structure. Gotham will probably give you a lot of details of what that means, but I know Terraform init is the first one. The next one is I'm going to do a Terraform plan. Terraform plan is it's going to read my definition and let me know here is what we intend to do as we get things working. And so everything's working out fine. I'll make this window, so I can make this window big. When I see a lot of these green plus signs, I know I'm adding new assets to to AWS. So I'm in really good shape at this point. You would see the same thing. The last one is I'll cut and paste this Terraform, apply, auto approve. This is going to just eliminate the question that it's going to ask, do you really want to do this? And I will apply this process. This repo has a definition for an EC2 instance. It has some ports that are open, port 22 for SSH, port 80 for a web page. What we have is we have a simple HTTP server installed on the machine, which will take a minute or two to spin up. And what we do is we now have this ready. Part of the outputs that we've defined is to get the IP address of the instance we just created. If I navigate over to Amazon EC2 and I do a refresh, we'll see evidence of this brand new instance starting to come up and running. It's a nano. If we were to look at the definition in Terraform, we'll see that it all matches. And this is fantastic. This is what we want to see. At this point, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'll do this from Cloud9 and maybe even my own computer to show you that this machine is available to everyone. So I'll do an SSH EC2-user at the IP address, and that worked. And what happens, assuming my machine is up and running, is from Cloud9, I am trying to SSH. Because I did not create a key pair or copy it or anything else, I'm actually not going to be able to do it. But this is proof enough that I'm able to access it from this environment. If I cut and paste this command here, let's see, I do a copy, and I go to my favorite Ubuntu-based CLI and run the same command. This is now my personal computer. I am also able to access this machine via IP. And so the narrative is going to be that you may want to limit access to something like your EC2 instances or something else, so it's not public. Right now, the CIDR block is 000. For those of you who know what that means, you know that it means the entire internet has access to my environment. This is described with some narrative and color commentary in here, and you see evidence of the same kind of outputs. And we tell you, hey, this is probably not what you want to do. This next command takes about a minute or two. It is a curl command to the same instance. I realize I have to do things just a little bit differently. Let me go back to here. A little bit differently is I had to do it this way, curl HTTP. It's just HTTP, not HTTPS, because it's just a plain old HTTP server. And if the service is up and running, we're going to see it's not yet ready. It takes about a minute or two. But what we'll see is this server is accessible from both Cloud9. And if I were to navigate into my CLI, we'll see it's not ready yet. I can probably hitting return for a few times, but at some point we'll see a result coming back. The narrative around this one is this is something you may not want to happen if you're trying to create an instance and you want the service available. So the rest of the workshop is going to be, well, what do you do to limit some of the things? Notice that if we were to go to our Snyk CLI output, we're going to see evidence that we flagged that kind of information. So I'll do the Snyk IAC test. And this is a reminder to the people on the other side that the 3 medium warnings that we have include this security group allows open ingress for those different ports. And that's the connection of you've got this thing that's happening and you want to probably address it. So let me just do one last thing where I do the curl. So there, curl worked at this point. The server is up and running. We see the hello world. It's just a very simple file. And if I navigate over to my CLI and do the same thing, I'll see the same. 2 different computers, 2 different IP addresses are able to access it. Let's now start fixing this problem. All right, so let's destroy the infrastructure because that's what we need to do. And the reason we do is we just want to make sure we get cleaned up and do everything correct. This is a neat operation. Let's start fixing it up. So we're going to edit the primary file and make some changes. One of the first things I'll do is I'll do a what is my IP. If you type this from your computer, you'll see that in this case, Google is telling me my IP address is this. The fix here is that we're going to modify the definition, the infrastructure as code definition, to do something better. So I'll look for allow SSH. So somewhere in my screen, it's line 16. You'll see the CIDR block of 000. I know one thing to do is to just replace this with my IP address and give it the qualification of 32. The other one is port 80. If I were to do this, is I'll do the same thing where I replace it with my IP address and 32. The reason I'm doing this is I'm going to try to show you that when I make these changes and publish it, my Cloud9 environment will no longer be able to see this asset. And this is the kind of feedback we would want people to know when they're doing their active development. They could have conversations with their security folks or operations people and say, what is the right thing to do? So I did a plan, and I'll do the apply. And in this case, you'll have to trust me that because the HTTP service took some time, it does work or does not work the way we want it to. But when this is up and running, the result we'll see is that given all this feedback, we're going to do some more of the right thing here. So we're waiting for this. I'll cut and paste this IP address, HEC2 user at this IP address. Let's see if the machine is up and running enough for me to try to do an SSH. What you may or may not know is Amazon will tell you that if you have this kind of response where you don't get anything, this is typically a networking. There is no path to the asset. So this is actually what we want to see. The next thing I want to do, did I do the right cut and paste? Let's see if this is going to work here. So my terminal can get to this, and that's good. But over here, if I do this command again, I'm not able to. It's because port 22 just is not available to my Cloud9 environment. It's only available to my personal computer, which is the IP address. And that just helps to show you that, oh, this is the kind of stuff you'd want to do. This entire narrative here describes the same thing. There are other things that we'll describe. And if I do the Snyk ISC test now, because I changed those things, I'll cancel out of this Snyk ISC test. Remember, I changed 2 lines. So I now expect to go from 3 mediums to 1. And that is precisely what happens. I have only 1 medium left. The last thing I can do to close out this example is the guidance tells me, one of the errors here is one of the issues is that I have a non-encrypted root block device. We're told where it exists. That definition happens to be around here. And this is an example of how we would tell you sometimes the default behaviors that are enabled in a cloud resource need to be overwritten. So here we get to do a little bit more of the right thing. I'll do the Snyk ISC test here because I just uncommented this fix-up. And what's going to happen is I'll go from 1 medium to 0 mediums. And that's what we want to see. This is the feedback cycle we want to do for developers before they even commit code. This is the explanation, a lot of color commentary. Please, check it out. I get to go ahead and, if I were to do like more things with the curl command, you'll see this. But at this point, I am more or less complete. I can destroy my results and finish it off with a quick example. I'll destroy it with a quick example of what it looks like within the Snyk UI. And that's like just a couple minutes. So Gotham, you'll be up in less than 5 minutes. Any questions, please direct them to me, Gotham. I haven't been paying attention.
There is a question here, Marco, but I think you're going to get to it. It's how do they publish the IAC scan result?
Okay,
in the UI?
Yeah, that's exactly what's coming up next. So the first thing I do as I wait for this instruction is I'm going to reset my environment by just doing a checkout of those files. You may have noticed I've made some changes, 3 changes, 2 for ports and 1 for the root block device. Gotham, I'm used to this getting destroyed a lot faster than 40 seconds. What's going on here, buddy?
Terraform just the messenger, Marco. It's all.
Oh, we're gonna blame AWS. No, we're not. All right, so it's done. So the cut and paste I'm gonna do here is I just cleared out my local edits. I'm gonna rerun Snyk ISC. We're back to 3 mediums and 1 low. And because I did things like set up the org ID and authorize, I now sent my results over to Snyk. You'll see that the URL has Snyk and it has this word HashiCorp. That happens to be the organization within Snyk. And we'll see evidence in my screen of the Gotham's operation being tested just a few seconds ago. So what we like about this is, if you send your results, your CI/CD environment or somebody else, you can share them to the shared environment, which is the web page, and you'll see all the information that you would want to see. All the results get sent in here. It's a nice UI. There's ways of filtering. We only have 8 vulnerabilities or issues, but if I wanted to just filter on mediums or lows or something like that, I can do this. You may be wondering, why do I only see 2 medium when you had 3 previously? It's because before the workshop, I did something where I decided to do an ignore. The call out here is at your command line, you can do a .snyk file, or in the UI, you have the option of ignoring issues because you may think it's just not interesting or it's not important at this time. So I unchecked it because I want to show you the experience of what it means. When I ignore, the options you have as a team is you can ignore it for, just for a few days, because it's not vulnerable, or you can ignore it permanently, or other combinations in between. These are all to match how you and your teams do your work. I decided to just, ignore it temporarily for 30 days and just leave it alone. And this disappears from the list. Really helpful. Other setup screens in here allow you to override the severity. You may say, hey, you think that's a medium? I think it's a low. Or you think it's a medium? I think it's a high. You can do those things and change them. There's also support for Rego if you want to create your own custom rules. That's an advanced topic, which we'll defer to some other time. But there's a lot of neat things that all this narrative, so for people who may not have the code checked out and want to just do it on their own, they can do it that way as well. Let me go back to the workshop, because I think I quickly went through a lot of the screenshots here, again, for your advice. And you can see like the information is the same, but it's designed to make it easy for you to just, get an appreciation of what's going on. Last but not least, this is like a takeaway, extra credit. The example we had is a vulnerable EC2 instance, which is really easy for everyone to understand. This example here is for an EKS cluster, which takes about 20, 30, 40 minutes to spin up, and it's really much bigger and more complicated. At your own leisure, I would encourage you to check it out and find out some more details, because there are some enhanced and advanced features that are visible here. So for example, when I did a Terraform plan, one thing we did not talk about is I actually bring extra context, which we use to our advantage to tell you you have even more vulnerabilities or issues. Those are things that are really well exposed in this advanced exercise, but we don't do it because it does take half an hour for you to spin up a cluster. Try it out. At this point, if there are questions, I'd like to answer them, but I would also like to start deferring over to Gautam as we do a transition. Questions as we stop me from sharing and hand it over to Gautam.
Yeah, thanks, Marco. Congrats, everyone, for making it through the module 1. I'm going to take you through module 2 and kind of shift focus a little bit, and I'll get into that. If you're enjoying the workshop so far, please enter the survey that we have for you and kind of give us some feedback on what you think of it so far. I'll start sharing my screen, and I'm gonna get into the pieces here. I wanted to kind of, I wasn't gonna do this, but let me kind of backtrack a little bit and start sort of talking about Terraform in general. I'm sure folks here know Terraform, but for those who don't, I want to kind of, I'll try to make it easy for you to kind of understand what it is and how you can sort of utilize it. So Terraform is infrastructure as code. It helps you manage your infrastructure in a controlled environment using version control and automations. It kind of makes it, it follows the dry principle. It's like, do not repeat yourself. If you already have a way of doing things, if you do have the pattern of doing things, that's what you follow. It also enables, capability to, have policy and policy as code to automate, and we have a bunch of different providers and modules to kind of make it really easy for you to deploy your infrastructure, right? Getting back to the DevOps and DevOps-centric practices with Terraform, well, I'm going to talk about Terraform Cloud a little bit. All the workflow Marco has shown so far is deploying a simple EC2 instance using CLI to kind of essentially get to that. It's cool. It gets you to the point, it's great if you're working on small teams to kind of, or with a few people to kind of be able to do that. But as soon as you transition into more than, I would say, like 3 or 4 people, you start to realize all the complexity that managing infrastructure comes with, right? And that's what Terraform Cloud is aiming to solve. So it's trying to centralize provisioning workflow for all of your teams. All of your teams can kind of look at all the infrastructures that they have. What is the status of that infrastructure? Is it still running? Is it still out there? Implement principle of least privilege. Like, if you don't want to give your intern the access to your production environment. The intern still needs to be able to do, like, some of the POC stuff or whatever they're working on, but they shouldn't have access to your production environments, right? So essentially giving that level of control with RBAC of, like, this is the access that this person has. It's very important, right? I actually talked about DRY a little bit earlier. Do not reach yourself with the system of record. And really what we're going to be focusing on this workshop is, like, using Snyk for code scanning to prevent misconfiguration, right? You want to make sure that whatever you're provisioning is not misconfigured, and it's not running out there, and it's like prone to threats and being hacked, basically, right? So we're standardizing policy as code management. We're trying to add guardrails around AWS provisioning, and you can do this in a very automated fashion. So again, Marco showed you, as a developer, as a team of a few, how you can sort of do this quick run of, like, hey, here's the CLI, here's what you run, and here's what you need to fix to deploy it. But you might have already noticed that, he deployed the infrastructure. It was already vulnerable out there, right? There wasn't any he couldn't restrict people from deploying a misconfigured infrastructure. So with Terraform Cloud and Snyk's integration with Terraform Cloud, I'm going to show you how, even if you try to, you cannot deploy an infrastructure that's misconfigured, right? And so extending that workflow with Snyk kind of gives us that ability, right? And the question is, like, where do we do it? So in most cases, you want to give everyone the ability to run a Terraform plan. Like, you can see, like, what you're trying to provision, what you're trying to add resources or delete resources, or what you're trying to do. So most of the users should have that plan capability, right? If they are allocated to that project or a workspace, right? But they shouldn't be able to allow, if Snyk says, hey, this seems to me like it's misconfigured, they shouldn't be able to kind of run that in production live in, like, AWS environment, right? Which is what we're trying to do. We're trying to block that from going to plan and apply. And the results that you get is, like, your manager doesn't, or the folks that you're working with, they don't need to have a keen eye on you and kind of making sure that you're doing the right thing. So it's automated, right? So you get that agility. You also have reduced risk, obviously, because with all of these processes, it kind of makes your life easier. So enough talk, enough use cases, discussion. Hopefully that gives you some idea. I'm going to show you this setup live, and to do that, I'm going to try not to switch too much between the workshop documentation and what I'm trying to do. But hopefully it kind of matches up really well. You can follow me along. I'll try to be as slow as I can be, right? So the first place I'm going to go is go to Terraform Cloud. By the way, Terraform Cloud is completely free. Anybody can start using it. We also give you free upgrade for 30 days. So I'm going to type app.terraform.io. Marco, if you would be so kind to kind of paste this link in the chat so that people don't have to type this themselves, even though it's kind of easy URL. So app.terraform.io. I'm already logged in. So if you don't have an account, it's pretty easy. You can go, it's going to ask you to create your account. Let me see if I can do that too, so that I'm really kind of taking my time. Here, so username, password. You can also use the HashiCorp Cloud account. you can create a free account right here. If you click right here, you should be able to do it. So pause. I'm going to pause here for a bit to kind of people to kind of be able to kind of create their free account. Let me see. Actually, mine is HCP account. So I'm going to click on HCP, login using Okta. All right. And I have all of my organizations that I'm a part of, right? For this workshop, you know what? I'll just create a new organization. I'm going to start everything from scratch. So I'll write it as AWS Snyk org. And I'm just going to hit create organization, right? Once I do that, okay, I get a nice little page that asks me to create a new workspace. Now, Terraform Cloud runs your Terraform in cloud, as as the name suggests. So we do need to give Terraform Cloud access to our AWS credentials and keys. You know what? I'll set up the workspace first, and then I'll go do the AWS credential setup. So I'll select in this page. I'll select the CLI driven workflow. I'll name it AWS Snyk workspace. Right. Create the workspace. Okay. There I have the workspace. And it's going to show me how I can get started. But before I do that, Terraform Cloud has few different modes of operation, as I was saying. The default mode is remote, which means that the execution of Terraform actually runs in the cloud, runs in Terraform Cloud itself. So Terraform Cloud, since it's running, Terraform, it needs the AWS credentials. I can change this to local execution or using an agent, but I'm going to keep it intact and keep it as a remote for now. So I'm going to go to my workspaces, back to my all my workspaces. And here, this is my organization settings. I'll go to my organization settings, and I'm going to create what's called a variable set. So what variable sets are is if there are a set of environment or Terraform variables that you can attach to multiple workspaces. So that way, if you are deploying multiple resources in AWS, you can do all of that at once. You don't need to keep defining your CLI or keep doing the environment variables every single time you open a shell environment. So I'm going to name it AWS credentials. And you know what? For this workshop, I'm going to apply it to all my workspaces, right? So that, if I'm trying to deploy AWS resources from any of my workspaces, it'll automatically attach these sets of credentials to that run. So it kind of makes my life really easy because I don't have to manage a bunch of shell environments and TF auto vars, which Marco showed, or environment variable. So I'll come here, and I'm not as secure as you, Marco. So I'm just gonna go back to my event engine, go to my AWS console, and I can see all my variables right here. So the default region is US East 2, so I'm going to copy it. Sorry for the hop. Okay, so the key becomes AS default region and US East 2. I'm going to hit environment variable, make sure it's an environment variable, add this variable, and then similarly, I do it with other resources, access key, and the value is this. And add this variable. Same for. So hopefully people who are following along can do this with me. I know it's a little bit boring copy pasting, but you only need to do this once. Once you do this, you can deploy whatever you want in AWS, however many times you want it, because it's going to attach these variables to every single run that you do. I'm going to also mark this sensitive because it's an access key, so it's sensitive. That way it's not visible in the UI. And the session token. So I'm going to take that, environment variable, and then copy this whole thing. Oh, hopefully that was copied. and then mark this as sensitive too, and add this variable. Once I'm done with that, making sure apply to all workspaces, you can name is anything you want, all the 4 variables, and create variable sets. So that way now, for all my workspaces, this becomes my AWS credential. I don't need to keep redefining it. Okay, getting back to a workspace, you can kind of see it tells you like how you can essentially attach a lot of these pieces. I'm gonna head back because I was following what Marco was doing for the workshop, and I'll head back to Cloud9. But before I do that, actually, run tasks is a paid feature for starting from team and governance. So for all of the workshop users here, you can click on this free trial upgrade here. It gives you access to all the Terraform features for 30 days. So if you see it on the left hand side, just click on upgrade, go to trial plan, which is again 0. Try out the team and governance plan for 30 days, and start your free trial. So hopefully, okay. So my plan's updated. It's active users. Now I'll go back to my Cloud9 environment. So any questions so far? I'm going to pause here a bit. Marco, is there anything?
Yeah. One just clarification question, Gotham, just a reminder of where you got the token from.
The token for AWS?
It's a good question. So participant 478 asks, where did you get that token from? And I think
the only token I've used is the AWS credentials.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're asking. So I got it through the event engine, and you can see the link again. Marco, I feel like folks may have joined late a little bit.
Yeah.
And once you go to the event engine dashboard, you'll see the AWS console, right? You click on this AWS console piece here, and you'll see all the credentials right here. Or I guess the environment variable, right? So
question is, what if we have multiple AWS accounts?
If you have multiple AWS accounts, then in Terraform Cloud, you can create multiple variable sets, right? Mm-hmm. And then depending on which account you want to use for which workspaces, you can tie them in that way. So like, for example, I want to use for workspace 1, 2, and 3, the first AWS account, you can attach them to those workspaces. And for 4, 5, 6, I want to use AWS account 2, then attach them to those workspaces. So when you create variable set, it has that capability of attaching that to all the workspaces or to specific workspaces, right? I chose all the workspaces just because it makes my life easier. And I just have one AWS account. But if you have multiple AWS accounts, you can definitely have, and you can distinguish them in the name itself, right? Like you can say, hey, AWS credentials for the, I don't know, Asia Pacific team, these are the credentials, or like for EMEA team, like these are the credential, whatever, right? And that will also give you like the region specific values too. So it kind of works out pretty well.
Hey, we have 2 more questions, and they're pretty good ones. One is, where are these keys and tokens persisted in Terraform Cloud?
Terraform Cloud kind of stores it internally, these keys. There are more secure ways of doing it, I'd say. But essentially, this Terraform Cloud kind of keeps track of these keys for you.
Last question is it possible to automate updating on Terraform Cloud the credential renewal when using AWS SSO?
I'm not too sure about that one. There might be a way to automate. Well, a lot of all of these things are accessible through APIs, right? I mean, I'm sure folks have written libraries and APIs. We also have the Terraform Cloud Provider. It's actually the TFE provider. So if you're using Terraform itself to configure Terraform, you can do that too, right?
Okay.
So I'm sure there's some automation out there that solves your particular problem. But yeah.
Yeah. Hey, there's some more questions, and so I want to defer some of the questions until a little bit later. These are going to be operational about where keys are stored and regions and things like that. Okay. Let's queue those up so that you can get through the next part, because I think these are details that explain the operations of Terraform Cloud.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so getting back to our lab that Marco was running, the same lab. Hopefully I did a destroy. Maybe I didn't. Oh, actually I didn't. So let me do a quick destroy so that we don't create duplicate resources. But what I'm going to do in this environment, and if you sort of notice this workshop sort of closely, it's we have a separate branch that I've created for easy working with the Terraform Cloud, and I'll show you how you can connect the same exact thing that Marco took you through and connect it using Terraform Cloud. While it's destroying, you know what I can do? I can go back to my Terraform Cloud and set up the Snyk run task. So this is a one-on-one integration with both our products, both our SaaS products, if you want to be specific about it. So I can go to my org settings. Let me refresh a bit. See if there it is. So I can go to my, so this is my home page for I can see all my workspaces. If I click settings here, it'll take me to the organization settings. And over there, if you scroll down a bit, you'll see a tab called Run Tasks. So when I click on Run Tasks, it's going to open up. Just give it a second. And what I'll do is I'll create a run task. So it also has like a straight documentation that you can look on, like how to configure this on your own end. But since I kind of know what I'm doing, I'll just hit run task and I'll write Snyk. And in order to configure this, it needs an endpoint and an HMAC key. So to get that, I'll go back to my Snyk dashboard, and hopefully you are following along with Marco. If not, just go to app.snyk.io, and that will take you to your dashboard and your org and all that good stuff. So once you go to the dashboard, you can sign up for a free org, and Snyk's free. We go to settings and actually go to integrations. Sorry, my bad. Integrations. I'll see a bunch of different integration. I'm going to search for Terraform Cloud. So here I can see Terraform Cloud. I'm going to click on it. As soon as you click on it, it gives you both those values. So I have the URL. Okay, I'll click the URL and I'll paste the URL right here. And I have the HMAC. I'll copy the HMAC and I'll paste the HMAC. And I'll create the run task. Cool. So it says the task was successfully created. So now Terraform Cloud knows how to talk to Snyk. And this way, all your, different command lines for IAC test, command lines for reporting kind of gets all, automated, because these two systems know how to talk to each other now. So now that it knows how to talk to each other, what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach it to my workspace, because yes, the two systems are connected, but like, which workspaces do I need to enable it on? So I'll click on the Snyk workspace, go to settings, and this is my workspace settings. So I'll go to my workspace. Okay, this is my workspace. I'll go to my settings. This is my workspace settings. I'll click on run tasks. So I'll see this plus button here. So available run tasks. I have this one that I just created. I'll attach it here. And for the stage, we're going to choose post plan. I feel like that's the most optimal place for my usage. You can try out a bunch of different patterns. And what I'm going to do is, instead of advisory, I'm going to make it mandatory. So even if that intern that I was talking about somehow gets access to your production cluster, and if he's adding, or if he or she's adding misconfigurations, we'll block that build from being deployed. We'll block that apply from happening. So I'll make it as mandatory, and run task stops the run. So create that. Okay, cool. Task is saved. So hopefully my destroy was completed here. Coming back to my Cloud9. Okay, it was. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to check out a branch. So I'm going to do git checkout TFC. So what that will do is, like, it will help me. Oh, there's some local changes. So what I'll do is git stash. Hopefully those changes were stashed. So git checkout TFC. Okay, so now I have a new branch TFC, and what this helps you out is, like, I've created some templates here to help you manage your the same workflow in Terraform Cloud. So not much has changed, honestly. It's only this block that has changed. So for my, it added a cloud block in my Terraform config. So I'm gonna go back to my Terraform Cloud and get the values. So the value, okay, this is the same exact block that was added here. So you know what? I'm gonna just copy this whole thing and I'll paste it right here. There we go. So that I don't have to manually type. If you want to type, go ahead. So that's all I needed to do, right? That's it. So I can run the same commands now. So I'll do Terraform init. Okay. I don't have my token. Good point. So for tokens, there are a few ways. If I do Terraform login, it's going to open up a browser. I don't think we can do that in Cloud9. I'm not sure. But what I will do is I'll go to my Terraform Cloud, go to my settings, and for teams, I'll just create a, excuse me. Actually, I'll go to my API tokens, and I'll just create an org token. You can create a team token, user token. Since I'm showing a new org, I'll just create an org token, and that's it. So I'll copy this token, and the workshop kind of shows you how you can apply this token as an environment variable. So I'll do export TFE token equals. Hopefully, now that I do Terraform init, oh, no, not the right environment variable. So let me check what is the right environment variable. Going back to my documentation here a bit. Second. Oh, it's this. Okay, cool. So it's export TF token app terraform.io. Okay, let's do that. Export and my token. So copy this and oops, is this and that. So let's try init again. All right, that worked. So it's able to initialize it. So what Terraform init does, it downloads all the sort of different plugins. Plugins are basically integrations that you're using. We're only deploying a EC2 instance in AWS. So it only downloads the AWS plugin. But imagine if you're using some VMware or Palo Alto network services, or even your app configurations, right? It's going to download all those sort of plugins locally so that you have a version of it. Now let's imagine that someone tries to deploy this insecure application, right? Insecure Terraform config. So I can see, okay, I have my ingress, which is like connection coming from outside into my system, coming in from anywhere. This is for SSH port 2022. And for HTTP2, I have 80 that's coming in from anywhere. So let's try to see if the workflow that Marco was showing, if anyone can sort of recommend that or kind of go ahead. All right, so configuration version. It's a token issue. Sorry, let me see if I can, instead of my app token, I'll use my user token. So I'll go to my profile, user settings, tokens, and I'll create an API token. I'll do AWS workshop, API token. All right. So hopefully this should work. Let's see. I could take the time to give that token the right rollback access, but it kind of gives you a good demonstration of like, if the token doesn't have the right access, you will not be able to do the right commands in Terraform Cloud. So blessing in disguise, I guess. All right, so the right token, so it's waiting for the plan to start. I can actually go to my Terraform Cloud UI and go to my Snyk org, and I can see it's running. I can click on it and actually observe the UI. I mean, you guys already saw the CLI, how it looks. It's good to see the UI as well. So I can see the plan is running. Okay, cool. Let's give it a few seconds. Or maybe refresh. Hopefully some of you are following along with us because it's really fun to kind of demonstrate. So you can kind of see it Snyk essentially said, hey, we found 3 medium issues and your severity threshold was set to medium. And I also get this link. It didn't let me deploy. Snyk didn't let me deploy. I actually can go to the details and look for that exact project and version. It shows me, hey, here you have an open ingress, same issue that Marco talked about for port 22 SSH and port 80, and I don't have an encrypted root block device, right? So it's like, even if that, intern or like a person who doesn't know much about Terraform tries to deploy something which has misconfiguration and it might be an issue, it's going to stop them from applying. So if I go back to my Cloud9, you can see the same things in my CLI as well. But if you look at the command, what I did, I actually did an apply. So even if I tried to apply something with the explicit permission, it kind of blocks me from doing that. So hopefully that was useful. And there are a few configuration options that you can set up for this integration. Like, for example, if I go back to my integration, and this is a Snyk panel, by the way, Snyk UI. If I go to my Terraform Cloud integration panel, you can kind of see my severity threshold was medium, right? If I set it to low, I all of a sudden I get even more sort of pushback, right? More vulnerabilities or more sort of things to look at. But yeah, if I set the threshold to high, it's gonna let me pass because if you this ingress vulnerability is medium, as Snyk says. So if I set the threshold to high, it's gonna let me go through because it's a medium level vulnerability. So it gives you that flexibility of what is your comfort level in terms of security, right? Because you want to make sure that you automate all of these things and you give people the right access at the right time, but at the same time you don't want to bog them down and kind of make life harder for them. So those kind of configuration options are present. The one last thing in terms of the workshop steps that I can do is I can fix the vulnerability and show you the same exact thing of it passing and it actually deploying. If there aren't too many questions, I can do that. Otherwise, I can, you kind of get the idea. It's like if you fix those vulnerabilities, and again, fixing those vulnerabilities are not a huge challenge because we kind of made it easier for you in the repository. So Marco showed this already, which is like, what's my IP, right? So if I click what's my IP, copy my IP, and just add it here, 32, and cider for ingress. Let's see. This one, and like same thing here. And this is the root block encryption. If I uncomment that, it's gonna be fine. So if I tried applying now, it should apply just fine. So Terraform apply, and that's about it. That's the workshop we have. Like I'm pretty sure it's gonna go through just fine. It's gonna apply because I fixed the vulnerabilities or the misconfigurations that this configuration had. As Marco said, feel free to check out the Terraform Goof, which has like more complex examples of what other pattern of misconfigurations are really easy to do. And also check out our survey and let us know, like, did you find this workshop to be useful, helpful, all that stuff. So you can see, one last thing, you can see the run task actually passed. So Snyk said, hey, looks good to me. You fixed your vulnerabilities and you can now apply. So it's applying, and I'm sure it's gonna apply just fine and create my EC2 instance.
Hey, Gotham, there's a couple of questions on there. And the first one is it possible to use your own key store or HSM module?
I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I believe this is in regards to storing the credentials of AWS credentials in Terraform Cloud. So we have some great examples of how you can do that with HashiCorp Vault and Terraform Cloud out there. I wish I had those URLs handy, but I don't. But I feel like if you just Google Vault and Terraform Cloud, it'll give you a much more robust example of how you can do the key management. If you're unfamiliar with what HashiCorp Vault is, it's secret storage solutions. It's free. Again, all the HashiCorp products are open source. You can kind of use it. We also have a cloud version of it that you can kind of try out. And that integration, that sort of coupling of product works really nice.
Okay.
I'd say give it a shot.
The other question has to do with regions, and it's like a two-step question. One is, what region let's start. In which region are the keys stored, and can we choose a region?
It's not. I don't think key storage is region specific in Terraform Cloud, because Terraform Cloud is a separate entity from your AWS environment. It's not sort of tied in together. We do know that Terraform Cloud, in itself and in its deployment, has support for all the AWS regions that you want to deploy on. But yeah, in Terraform Cloud, it's not like it's a separate entity. It doesn't have regions. It doesn't really matter to it.
Okay. I think we're at the end, Raj.
Yeah. So
Okay.
last thing, right? I think somebody said that they can't access the survey link. What about others? Can somebody else confirm if they can access the link?
I was able to cut and paste, but I'm using it as cut and paste.
Somehow it comes like a hyperlink for me, so I don't know why it's not working for others. Can you please try cut and paste if the hyperlink doesn't work? Because this is very important for us to understand what worked, what did not, and we can try to make it better next time.
Yep. So the link at the top of the chat should work. I've got that updated and confirmed. I've also have it in the handouts. So if anyone would like to go ahead and click into that survey, you can find it in the handouts. I've just adjusted and double checked that link. But if you fill out our post-program survey that will pop up on the screen, you'll also be redirected to this survey once again. So please just make sure you get over to this link one way or another.
Hopefully the workshop was helpful to you all. Some of you should have followed us and kind of it made sense to you all and you enjoyed it. Thanks for joining us.
So last thing, Gautam. So the workshop is like the URL. Can you put the URL once again for the workshop, Marco, just in case somebody joined late?
Yeah, sure.
So we have all the links, I think, in the handout, where you can also go and do offline. You don't have to follow us if you have not followed us or if you have joined us late. Just go and do. You have 24 hours free access to all these accounts. So feel free to learn something new, so that we'll be happy that you learned something new today.
Awesome. And Marco, you got any closing words before we take us off the air?
Thank you very much. If you followed along in your own environment, Terraform Destroy will help you remove those assets. And for these instances, they're lightweight. But if you go through the EKS cluster, make sure you do Destroy, because that'll cost you some time and money on your side. But that's all the cleanup you should need in your own environment. Thank you all.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Raj, Marco, and Gautam, thank you all so much for joining us today. I know a lot of work goes into 90 minutes of demo and content, so I really appreciate all the hard work that went into making this go so seamlessly and so smoothly. So thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. So
Bye.
to everyone who followed along today, this session was recorded. You will receive an email with a link to access the recording on demand, or you can also find it living on the DevOps website at devops.com/webinars, and then just be sure to look in the on-demand section. So we do have those 4 $25 Amazon gift cards to give out, and our winners are Clementis C, Ariadne P, Adrian B, and Nat N. So to our 4 winners, please keep an eye on your inbox to claim that gift card. But if you don't happen to see that email, please do check your spam folder. I'd like to thank AWS and Snyk for sponsoring today's program. And to everyone who's been with us for the entirety of our workshop today, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time, and we also really appreciate your feedback. So like I mentioned a few minutes ago, as soon as we close out, there will be a survey that pops up on your screen. Let us know what you liked about today's workshop, or maybe what you'd like to see in future workshops. And once you fill that out, you should also be redirected to that AWS Amazon survey. So please do fill that out for them as well. I know they'd really appreciate it. Other than that, I hope to see everyone at an upcoming Techstrong Learning program. Have a great rest of your day. And to our panel, Gautam, Marco, Raj, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.